Good evening and welcome to EKCO Wise Parenting here on Life 97.5 FM. Gotta say good afternoon to my co-host Chanel. How are you doing?
I am doing great, Arnell. How are you?
I am blessed. So before we get started, we just have to let everyone know that we are launching today. We're letting you know today that the EKCO Nation's Resilient Youth Camp is happening. This is happening from July 14th to 25th. And if you want to be a part of that, we only have 50 spaces available. You need to go and register now. The information, we're going to share that information with you a little later, but you can go on to EKCO Nation's Linktree address. That is linktr.ee/EKCO Nation. And you'll be able to get the link to go and register and see all the information there to get your child or ward registered for our youth camp. Last year, we had a wonderful time at our youth camp, and at this camp we were teaching our children, our teens, all about how to be wise, responsible, positive, and safe with their digital engagement. They also got to find out about music, do a lot of team and personal development activities, and more. So if this is a camp that you want to be a part of, make sure to go and check it out, or you can WhatsApp us at 254-3526 to get that information to how you can register and apply to be a part of, to have your child or teen to be a part of the EKCO Nation Youth Camp. So it's something really exciting that we want you to know about. I believe the deadline for this registration is the 24th of June. So make sure you go ahead and register and apply as soon as possible. All right. So today we have a very special guest with us. He is Mr. Stephen Williams. Now, I know Mr. Williams for the last 25 years. Wow. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's about 25 years. So I gotta say good afternoon, Mr. Williams.
Good afternoon, and good afternoon, EKCO Nation family.
All right, so I would tell people this. Mr. Williams is my first boss. I think my first and only boss in terms of employment. He's the one that invested in this young man when he was fresh out of UE, and got me involved in technology. And a lot of the inspiration that I got in technology and also in terms of innovation, he's played a major role in that. So it's a real pleasure to have you here with us. And Steve, you are the principal consultant for data privacy and management advisory services. And I know you're also an IT entrepreneur and a data information strategist, right? So there's so many different things that you do, a columnist, all these type of things, and we're here to talk about data privacy and safety.
Correct.
So I'm going to kick the ball off with the first question. Why is data privacy and safety so necessary for families to consider today?
First of all, thank you, to you and the EKCO Nation family for having me. To jump straight into the question. If you think about it, right now, I gave a question to a cohort of young people I was talking to today. I asked them, which is more important, or which is the most precious resource? You have gold, oil, or information, right? And they were like, okay, information. We are at a stage where information is more valuable than oil. And the most valuable of the information is people's personal identifiable information, their hopes, their dreams, their buying patterns, what they buy. And I always give a quick example of this situation where a daughter, right? She was basically surfing the internet concerning baby stuff, and she didn't realize her account was linked to her Amazon account. And her father was connected to that, and she wasn't ready to tell her family that she was pregnant yet, right? And then, all of a sudden, stuff starts showing up at the house, Amazon boxes for these like little gifts, to the father saying, "Congratulations, Dad, on being a grandfather," right? And if you don't be careful, how information is used, who can access it, where to access it, what they're doing with it. We could find ourselves at the bottom of a wrong bad joke, right? Because you can imagine we have our children now so much online. We live at a stage where this is their world, this digital world is their world, but we have to do our best to protect them. And part of that is to understand the risk. And information is very easily transferred from one country to the next. Things like scamming, even adults face that problem where they're being scammed online. And remember, if adults are struggling with these things, EKCO Nation has a role to play in helping not just parents but young people to navigate the world where digital threats are real. I make the connection to that. I am not worried about Trinidad invading Barbados, but you can have any country attacking Barbados digitally. The likelihood that any country invades Barbados is rather on a risk level slow. It's very, very low. However, we get attacked daily, right, from systems, people, information, and scamming, and we lose millions every year to scamming. We do.
Whoa.
We lose a lot of money to scams.
All right, so you mentioned that this whole idea of our information, our personal identifiable information is out there. We talk about things like digital footprint, where you have the passive footprints, which is basically data that's collected unknowing to you. So you go online and you don't know that you're sharing this information based on what you're doing. And then there's active footprints, data that you leave when you make deliberate choices online, things that you search and so on. Now, these whole footprints, this digital footprint creates a profile of that individual. Why is this important for parents to monitor that type of stuff?
Well, the low-hanging fruit is to understand that once something's on the internet, I'm sure you said it in your show before, it stays there forever. So it's important that when you go for a visa, people realize that when you go for a visa right now, the United States government asks you for your social media account, right? They want to know, they use it as a judge of character, right? And employers now see it as a differentiator, right? Universities use it as a criteria, right? Because, and I ran a program for athletes, went from BSAC to scholarship. And we spent time with them developing a profile befitting of an athlete that's representative of a school. Because we don't realize that, we have a culture here that might not necessarily be understood easily on the international scene. There's some things, some words and behavior that we have maybe local and we understand within a certain context. But then you have an international audience that when you are now given a scholarship, okay, and you go overseas, you are a representative of that college, especially if it's a sports scholarship. So you want to make sure that your profile, fits in with a certain perspective, and that footprint stays with you. Because at the end of the day, colleges for so long, we have a good footprint and you build a good profile. You might find that there's a business that picks you up after, opportunities will come, especially in the field of sports. That's just one example. But regardless of where you are, what you're doing, social media, your digital footprint, what you do online does matter.
Very much so. You hit the nail on several things there in understanding that your future careers, your future academic future, all of that is in there. But you also played a role, before we get Chanel to ask her first question, you've also played a role in consulting concerning the Cyber Crimes Bill and Data Privacy Act and all these type of things. What about in terms of that information? How can that in fact impact the family? What the government is doing right now concerning data privacy and safety?
Well, dear. Let's deal with data privacy, and the cybercrime bill is something else because it's still a bill. It's not been passed. It's best it's not been passed yet. We still are under the Computer Misuse Act, so it's not been repealed. So under the Data Privacy Act, which I did have a small hand in as well, what I would say is there's a lot of work to be done in terms of awareness. I've gone to many government agencies who still have not been trained, and they're a government, right? So I could only imagine what that would mean for the rest of the public, because it's government's bill. And if you have people across the civil service that have not been trained in understanding what it means that you leave yourself open as a country to having this thing has been passed and your people are not necessarily aware of what their rights are. Because under Data Protection Act, you have a certain rights that are in the act that is afforded to you, such as the right to have your information correct. Right? So take, for example, you don't want a situation where a pharmacy has wrong information about your medical history. You may end up getting wrong medication the next time. Right? So these things basically, having right access to information is critical, that you know what your rights are, so you can say, what, that's not me, correct it. Right? I want my information deleted because I'm no longer a customer of yours. Right? So to understand your rights is critical to be a informed digital citizen.
All right. So I'm going to go to Chanel for her first question. But before I do that, I want to just share a quick story, because we've been talking about data privacy and safety, and we've been talking about digital footprints. I shared this before, where I have a cousin who resides in the States, and we know that there are data mining sites that go and collect all this information. And I asked her basically if you shared any of your private information with anyone, and she said no. And I went on the data mining site, I put in her name, and they asked me, well, we have several hits on this name. Can you tell me which state she lives in? And I put in the state and was able to see her profile. And on that profile, I could see a Google Map location of her home. Right? I know this is nothing that I paid for. I just went on and searched. I could see her home on Google Map. I could see her email address, phone number, possible family members. So it gave me the names of family members, persons that I know that's associated with her. And for $2 more, I could get more information in terms of a full profile of her. So that is why I think it is so important that we understand why digital safety and privacy is so important. And so, Chanel, what is your first question?
Well, before I jump to my first question, and that's interesting you're saying all that, because we're in schools right now and we're dealing with class 4s for the transition programs, and many of these kids are online for 8+ hours a day. These are class 4s, so 11, 10-year-olds. And most of them have no parental control. Well, if you're online at 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning, definitely no parental control is going on there. And to me, that's very dangerous. So, and I don't think parents are aware of how dangerous it is to, as you talk about digital footprint, all the things you're talking about grows in my head and I don't even know, understand half of it. So what are a few basic things parents can do to secure their child's digital safety and privacy?
Okay, so you've said a situation where parents cannot be around the child all the time. So obviously you need some digital tools. But I would also say that, and I brought an example, but I forget this is radio, not TV. But right? But I call it a social media or digital let's call it a family digital contract, right? But you need to just how you have some rules for your physical home. Like, for example, nobody coming in here when sort of way, right? You bring the boy in, right? You need to have a contract, an understanding with your kid on what your expectations are. I think that because parents sometimes are intimidated by the technology themselves, they don't put the same principles that they have in the physical world, in the digital world for the child. So take, for example, what your expectations are, what games are allowed. You say, well, I buy these games, but right now I had to deal with a parent whose child is trading in digital crypto. So, she didn't give the child any money, but they were able to play a game, make money, make cryptocurrency by playing this game, and then still be able to trade and buy games and buy online, and then, off ramp it with things like PayPal and, But anyway, I digress. But, right, so if you think about it, right, she didn't buy the game. He was able to use digital tools to do it. So you need to actually have almost a social contract now. I have different parts. So I really can't show anybody anything right now.
Well,
right?
we do have, EKCO Nation does have one of those family media plan.
Correct.
So that is something that
right.
we do have. Right. And we've been talking about. So you're on par. You're on track.
Right.
You're already in the right pathway there.
Right. So start there, but then you need some tools to back it up. And there was one that I introduced many years ago. I think Mr. Gosling backed it up as well with Custodio. I will always say that that's number one, and they have maintained that number one position in terms of tools to monitor screen time.
Could you spell that, please? Custodio.
Custodio. I'm spelling it wrong.
Custodio.
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 Custodio. And there's another one that has emerged called Bark. Right? And that seems to be, it's always a competitor. You should always get two to look at, not just focus on one to see what other technology is out there. But I would say start with understanding your child and understand your child's behavior. A lot of parents just leave it up to technology and say, okay, is it a technology problem? I use technology to fix technology. But I say get to know your child equally so.
All right. So you're saying you have this arrangement with your child when coming to the digital technology, and also having some aspect of monitoring
Correct.
and control. Now, in terms of that, because we did have this type of discussion before, where the whole aspect of monitoring and control came up. How can parents balance that in terms of how far do I go in terms of monitoring, or do I monitor everything? And how far do I go in control? Do I control everything, or do I leave a certain leadway in place?
And it's a good question. I think, as I said, the first thing is get to know your child, because I will give an example of my oldest now. She's a full adult, 22 this year. But anyway, but I remember she had a tablet, right? And her first tablet, and she went by a friend, and I put on the EKCO Studio. And my mother shared my account, so my mother got this alert that, you know, it went on, somebody put in a porn, an adult request. And of course, she don't freaking out. But I said, you know your grandchild? I said, you better ask the question first. Right? So she went over by a friend, right? And when the friend was talking, this other person took up the tablet and went on. That's why I said you can use the tools to monitor, but you have to know your child.
It's all about relationship then.
Right? Because no, if we had punished her because they unaccuse her, whatever relationship and respect that we all share as parents and guardians would have been eroded. Because then we would have come with an accusatory tone for something that she didn't do. And when my mother did check, right, I'm not even through her, through the friend, right? Oh yes, this body had the tablet, and they didn't even use it because they got to talking, chatter, like, you know, girls, chatter. But the person took out the tablet because they were not using it, right? So it has to start with understanding of your child. I think that we leave technology to fix problems that, not that we don't have, but we don't want to do the work, and parenting is work. And I am not perfect, and I can tell you that parenting is work, and then you cannot replace the work with technology.
I love that what you said. You can't replace the work with technology. When we do talk to our parents, one of the things we said is that the relationship is primary in terms of how you parent, and that relationship with your child comes first, even before the monitoring tools and the control tools. And we usually say, don't be quick to judge, but be quick to listen. Be quick to listen and be slow to judge, because the whole idea is to find out what your child knows. If you come aggressively at your child saying, what's this, what's blah, 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 they tend to shut down. But if you come to say, okay, could you explain what's happening here? You get to know what the child knows. And once you are informed, you're talking about information, then you can make more wise decisions in terms of how you can correct the action or what things you need to put in place. And as you said, having that family media plan or that contract or that arrangement with the child helps the child to know, okay, all right, these are my boundaries, and if I go past this boundary, this is the expectation of what could happen, and so on. So we really do appreciate that. Any other questions you have, Sharna?
Well, actually, to build on that point, when it comes to relationship and listening, everything does not have to be policing. So, okay, you've done the crime and you do the time. Teachable moments are important because they are children, they're teenagers, they will experiment, they will want to know different things, and they're not always going to come to you. But then you can use that as an avenue to have that discussion with them about something that they want to find out more about, but did not know to approach you. So as I said, it's a lot of monitoring, but it's key to that is definitely relationship. And we will not stress that enough. So in terms of safety though, I know I was at a session last weekend and parents, I just started to really scratch the surface about all the possible things that can go wrong, and parents were more or less freaking out, as we would say, about I didn't know this, I didn't know that, and this is not my field in terms of safety and privacy to tell them what to do. But how you said how important it is already, and you talked about some bigger things with scamming and all these things, but how important is it? Because they're going to think, well, I don't have all that important information. But in terms of a child's daily safety, is it a big issue in Barbados? Because, oh, you're talking about stuff that happened in the States or overseas that is not here. So do we really have a threat with safety of our children here from being online? Okay,
so am I worried that some predator uses the platforms to convince my child to get on the plane. No. However, there is part of the act that I wish we would pass it though, deals with grooming. Mm-hmm. There's a big issue with grooming where predatory behavior in terms of adults are grooming young minds in a different way, right? In terms of building a certain behavioral pattern, deviant behavior pattern with actually access to technology. And because you have a situation where, well, my child doesn't go this, my child doesn't go that. The fact is that once your child gets on the tablet, they have gone. They might be in your presence, but they have gone. So yes, from an information standpoint, it may be limited to a point. However, right, we still have to worry about grooming. We start in terms of, okay, I don't want to see. I'm trying to not say
the things because parents need to hear these things.
Right? A quote unquote, right? Let's use the people that always get bashed. Minibus man, right? He basically gets a number from a girl or what her number is. I know he's talking to her online, right? Giving her attention. They said, my daughter goes come out. That's true. But right now she's not having start having inappropriate conversation that couldn't naturally occur because you have to be on the phone in a particular area. Remember there's the phone when you're in the house? You had them in a public place with that phone, the phone in your bedroom, right? So now you have a situation where inappropriate conversations can happen in small corners after hours. These things to me are more of a concern for parents. Yes, they're necessary, your information getting out there, which is equally devastating because if you think about it, it could affect your credit, right? It could affect people now using you to build profiles for themselves. So therefore they can take you now and spoof you, right? And then use you now to probably launch and have information in your name. So you may say, well, okay, I'm in Barbados, but you go to the States and realize somebody has a credit card in your name. Or somebody has your profile being used in New York. And when you go there now, you get hold for something that you ain't got no idea about. All right, so it's not simple because my job is to think of weird things that can go around, and that's what I do for companies. All right, cybersecurity too, which is cybersecurity. You have to think of the weirdest things that could possibly happen because just like terrorists, they have to just get it right once. You as a parent have to get it right all the time, right? And that's the difficulty, right? So my job, whether it be dealing with parents or companies, is that what's the weirdest thing could possibly happen? They go, Steve, nah, that really can't happen. So you don't want to accept this risk? No problem, but understand we're going to note it, right? And as a parent, you have to think yourself, okay, could this happen to my child? It's like, well, note it. It likely maybe not, but then at least your mind is praying for the flags, the possibilities that might happen because you just start seeing certain patterns.
All right. So I know you're going down. You see things at a macro level because I know you work at a macro level in terms of data privacy and safety and all these things. But there is an aspect of it. I know people think about it a lot from the standpoint of the what's happening on the device. But we hear this thing and we discussed it somewhat at some point in time with social hacking. Where we know that the government is going electronic. We know so many services are online, and a lot of these online services, you have security questions and all these different types of things to use. So people they may have a simple conversation with you, but it's intentionally trying to get your information. And parents may think, well, that can't really do nothing much in terms of a child. But are we seeing situations where persons are using children in order to, you used grooming before, but I'm looking at the social hacking aspect now to probably even access a parent's credit card information or get information on a parent's schedule or whatever. Is this something that is happening?
I've not really seen that to that level. What I can say is that most Barbadian businesses have stayed away from using children anyway. They are very conscious of not to use children. Now, if it happens on the other level, which is because we're so connected, so we're talking about games, we're talking about social platforms that kids are engaged with. What I would say is that our credit cards are not very lucrative, right? Because our banks range compared to the States, which have different types of cards and different types of access. Once these cards, because remember our card block, say we from the Caribbean. If you ever try getting something online and realize your card don't work, right? Or the numbers is geo-blocked. Some things may be available, but some things not. They want really American numbers. I'm not saying that we don't get hacked either in terms of at least get scammed with our numbers, but it doesn't have the same weight, right? If I can do X energy and get cards that are more valuable, I will do that thing. So I don't think that's as much a problem yet, because our cards aren't very international. It's still very much geo-blocked to the region. And that is not necessarily because it's a strategy, but just because the region has other things going for it or against it, depending on your perspective.
All right, so thank you for sharing that information. We've been hearing from Stephen Williams, and he is the primary consultant for data privacy and management advisory services. And he's been talking to us about digital safety and digital privacy. We talked about digital footprints and how what we maybe go online. There are things tracking what we do, whether we intentionally do it or not, and that we need to take careful attention of what our children are sharing online to protect their safety and privacy. We heard from Mr. Williams that we need to have that foundation in terms of a relationship, and what could help with that is a family media plan where both parent and child understand what is acceptable, safe, and responsible use of digital devices in the home. And I'm glad to say that EKCO Nation has that type of plan. So if you're interested in getting that for your family, please connect with us, 254-3526. We've had several parents who adopted the plan, and they're talking about how it has really helped them in the home. He also talked about several tools that you can use for both monitoring and control, but do not allow these tools such as Custodio and Bark. We think we have a Google Family Link as well, and Microsoft has a platform as well. Do not allow these tools to replace your parental relationship. All right. And as he reiterated, we need to ask first. Be quick to listen, slow to judge, know what your child knows. These are things that we are hearing constantly. If you're going to be parenting better in a digital world, we need to do these things. Your relationship with your child matters. So I want to say thank you to Mr. Williams for joining us today for EKCO Wise Parenting. We want to say also thank you to the Massy Foundation for supporting this. And we want to remind you all about our EKCO Nation's Resilient Youth Camp coming off July 14th to 25th. Applications are open right now, ages 12 to 17. Applications are open right now. Go ahead and check us. You can WhatsApp us at 254-3526, or you can check out our Linktree address. That is linktr.ee/EKCO Nation. You can find all the information there, how you can apply. The registration fee for the camp covering the 2 weeks is $150, and that includes daily lunch. So you don't have to worry about lunch. We take care of that for you. Transportation costs, the tours and activities, your own Resilient Camp shirt, and camp materials as well. So we want to thank you, Mr. Williams. Thank you, Chernel, for joining us today. We want to say thank you to all of those who've been supporting this program. We have up next coming up the Starcom Network News, and join us next week. We come back next week Tuesday at 4 p.m. for the EKCO Wise Parenting Show. We want to help you with parenting better in a digital world.
Join the movement to change the culture, change the future. Become a monetary partner with EKCO Nation when you donate to our Scotiabank account number 456124. That's 456124. Checks can be written to capital EKCO Nation. Contact us at 254-3526, email econation@gmail.com, or visit our website at www.econation.com for more details. EKCO Nation is registered charity number 1429 in Barbados. We thank you for your continued support.